Okay, so today is the last new day of Precalc, last day of new material. 3.5 worksheet number 6. 3.5 number 6. So here we go. First of all, what are we doing? You've had a long weekend, so let's see if we can review a little bit first. We're talking about logs. And you've learned so many things about logs. Let's start with some really basic ones. This is why we have logs, to solve problems like that. Would you just try to rewrite that in a log? That's the reason we need logs. Otherwise, you could probably get along without logs in math. Now, they're useful for some things, especially in our culture. You guys will see them most as you're adults in the Richter scale and decibels. Those are two things that you use a lot that are based on logs. All right, so this one you should have said log base 7 of 8 equals x. Now, why is that better? Because this you can't put in a calculator very easily. Granted, you can always do that one trick I keep telling you over and over and over again. It works on so many kinds of problems, which is graph both sides and see where they cross. That's a crucial skill for life, frankly, because if you have any equation at all, you can graph both sides, see where they cross. And you don't have to even know what's going on. If I threw in a sine or a cosine here, you could still do it with graphing and you wouldn't even know what was going on otherwise. Okay, anyway, this one is easy to put in the calculator too. If you have your calculator with you, take it out and put that in. If you don't know how to put it in, then that finds another little area we should work on. If it was a non-calculator part of the test, we would have said, how could you put this into the calculator? All right, so back to, you should have said log 8 over log 7. That is what's called a base change. Log 8 over log 7. Why is it a base change? Because those are in base 10. This was in base 7, so they clearly have changed from one base to another. All right, some other basic stuff you should know about logs by now. When you have two logs that are, or a log that is multiplied like log 7x, that can be broken up. Try it. Tell me what you think it is. Expand it. I want to just make this point. As opposed to this, you cannot expand that further. But the kind that are multiplied can be changed into two logs. Log this and log that. Log and log. And if it's a multiply, you change it to a plus. Log 7 plus log x. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. Now I'm going to change it a little bit. Log 7 squared. Now change your answer just a little bit. And where to put that squared? It'd still be here, but then you should move it if you're expanding down to the front. Raise your hand if you had that right. Okay, good. Now what if I throw in one more thing? What if I say minus log of m? Actually, if I'm expanding, I would just put minus log of m. Okay, that was a bad question. I was thinking that I was going to be making it more complicated. Now what I'd like you to do is take this answer right here, the answer you had except with a minus log m on it, and I want you to condense it. And you're condensing it, you're boiling it down so it only has one log. Log whatever. That thing that's your cell phone? No. It has to come up here. After that long a conversation about cell phones, that wasn't a good idea. All right, so this should have been condensing down. The 2 goes back up on the 7. Then these two guys can be put together. You can do this in the other order too. If you want to put these two together first, you could, but I wouldn't. I would go from left to right. Then I would say this is log 7 squared over x. No, wait, I'm wrong. Times x, sorry. Because adds turn into multiplies. And then this minus log m means divide by m. And it's really a classic mistake for a kid to leave 2 logs in their answer. Look and see if you said that. If you said log this over log that, that's wrong. That's only used on those base change problems. There should be only 1 log when you're done with the condensed problem. If you're condensing it down, it's supposed to only have 1 log left. Yes. It would be also okay to say 49x over m. Yes, that'd be fine. Okay, so that's the basics of expanding, contracting, all that stuff. Then we got into solving. So that was things like this. Log of x plus 3 plus log of x minus 4 is equal to log, or 2 log 3, for instance. Now don't write the problem down. Condense that left-hand side, simplify the right-hand side, cancel things when you can. When it's all done, you'll have a quadratic. See if you remember how to solve something like this. I'm going to pause for a second while you try that. Okay, so your first step, anytime you're solving and you can condense something, you should condense it. If you can simplify it, you should simplify it. All right, so condensing this part would be log x plus 3 times x minus 4. And over here we have that 2 that can come up on the squared like this. That'll be log of 3 squared. Ooh, 3 squared, I know that one, that's 9. Now, whenever you have logs where there's 1 on each side, they'll almost always be the same base. Otherwise, we're trying to make it really nasty for you. But if we aren't trying to make it nasty, it'll just be, oh, there's a log on each side. Cancel, cancel. If they were different bases, then it'd be much more complicated. But all right, so then it's down to just this multiplied out, x squared, outside, inside, minus x, last, minus 12, equals 9. And what do you always have to set them equal to? 0. So then that's x squared minus x, and then I'm going to add 9 to both sides, minus 3 equals 0. And now, is there a way? You're right. So the 9 and the 2 make negative 21. All right, then that probably didn't factor, did it? Okay, and if on the test, it would be a 95% chance it's going to factor because we don't want to have quadratics, the quadratic formula. We could use the quadratic formula to solve this. It would be fine. It's just that we usually don't do that in this unit. Okay, so expect them to factor. All right, but since it didn't factor, it's x equals negative b positive 1. Plus or minus a square root of b squared, which would be negative 1 squared, which would be 1. Minus 4ac, 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 21, all over 2a. 2 times 1 is 2. There we go. So then this part is positive, so we're going to have 40, 84, 85, so it's 1 plus or minus the square root of 85 all over 2. And that is an ugly number, but it is correct. Now, one thing. You'd have to actually figure out what the square root of 85 is to know whether or not, when you do this minus, whether or not your answer is negative enough that it wouldn't work. Remember to check your answers. That's another theme. So there's several things I've been telling you here that hopefully are making some sense. One is you've got to be able to rewrite. One is that logs on both sides cancel. Oh, log on each side. Boom, done. As long as it's the same base. It's just 8 equals x. Another one is that you see something that looks like a quadratic. You have to be able to recognize kind of what they smell like, what they look like, what they feel like. Any guys ever hunted for morel mushrooms? Some of you have. They are so good. They taste so good. But there's another mushroom that's like an imitation of a morel. It actually looks kind of close to it. And it's taller, I guess. Okay. I don't know the differences, so all I can say is you better be sure you're actually eating a morel, because there are mushrooms that can shut down your liver, and you'll end up dying if you eat them. So you don't want to eat just some mushroom that looks pretty in your yard, because it could poison you to death. But there are morel mushrooms that are just amazingly expensive, like 35 bucks a pound for these mushrooms, and you can pick them in just like along the loose line trail. If you know what to look for, they're just right there. Had some the other night. They were amazing. Okay, anyway, this one, I kind of smell a quadratic here because I see something squared. I see something, the same exact thing, except it's not squared, and I have a constant there. By now, I hope you've learned how to do a U substitution. Why so many cell phones today? Thank you, sir. All right. So this is a u substitution. Let u equal e to the x. I'll pause for a second while you work on. Okay, here we go. So, see if you can learn from this now. After you do that u substitution, don't talk now, you have this. Ah, rats, I got distracted by things, and I did not make that factorable, did I? All right. Imagine for a moment that that had been a 2. That 7 can easily be forged into a 2. Anyway, and if that happened, I'd have u plus 1 and u plus 2. Would everybody start from there and say it's u plus 1 times u plus 2, and then just see if you know what to do from there? I have to change that problem back to being a 2. Because the answer, yeah, it comes out to u equals -1 and u equals -2, but that's not it. That's not the end of the story. Because then, because it was a u substitution, you got to resubstitute that u back in as an e to the x. And can you stop there? No. That's a common mistake. I don't understand why people stop there. The point is to find the answer, and then it's not done yet. It doesn't have an x alone. The x is not alone. So I have to say log base e, also known as ln, of -1 equals x. Oh, wait a minute. I can't do that because there's a negative in the argument, so you have to say no solution. And the same thing's going to happen over here. Log base e of -2 equals x. That's just a rewrite. And can't have a negative right there. So both of them, boom, boom, no solution. Any questions? They take a long time, so not right now. But I'd be happy to help you with one of those on your homework if you want. Okay, there's so many things to know. Like, can you rewrite this way? Log base x of 64 equals 3. Just do a rewrite and see what happens. Your number one go-to thing for this test should be, can I rewrite it? And sometimes you have to get the clump alone first. Remember that? Like if there had been a 6 out here or something, you'd have to divide by 6 first to get the clump, this whole thing, alone. But once you got the clump alone, then you can rewrite it usually. If you can't rewrite it, then the next step I'd be thinking of is, maybe I can get common bases. If common bases doesn't work for you, then maybe you should be thinking about, is this somehow a quadratic? Should I do a u substitution on it? Okay, so this one can be rewritten, so it's not too hard. X to the third equals 64, and then you put it to the power of 1/3. And that's x equals, what's the third root of 64? 4. And is it plus and minus or not? It is not, because that was an odd power. If it had been an even power, then it'd be plus and minus. But this is not plus or minus, it's just 4. Only if this had been an even number on the bottom right here, then it would have been a plus and minus. Okay? All right. Next, this review is pretty comprehensive. There really isn't much new today for our last new day. But I'm going to hand out the new worksheet first. Then for those of you that are the overachiever types and want to get started on your review, because the test is coming 2 days from now. If you want 2 days to work on the review, I'm going to give you that also if you want to work on that. I'm about to show you the new stuff on this worksheet right here. 2, 3, 4, 5. No, nothing I've talked about so far is really new. Need one more? Okay. Okay. Wait, please. All right, now I need to get going into this review worksheet. Shh. Quiet, please. All right. Looking at number 1, I hope you can see that right away that's just a condensing kind of a problem, but it is a condensing like we've never seen it before. Nothing terribly scary, but it's a little different, so let's try it together. I'll rewrite the problem while you start it. log base 2. Shh. Don't talk yet, please. We're almost done. Until then, I'd appreciate it if you could zip it. Plus log base 2 of 5 equals 4. All right, this part can be condensed. If you can condense it, you should. Kind of like I used to say, if you can factor it, you should. Well, it's not much of that until the end of these problems, but all right. So I'm going to condense that down to log base 2. And do I have to say base 2, or can I just say log? You have to say base 2, because if I just said log, that would imply base 10. All right, x plus 2 times 5. And then, can I just cancel the logs on both sides? There isn't one on the other side, so no, I can't. So, I could do this, though. Rewrite. It's your main go-to strategy. Rewrite 2 to the 4th equals all that. And 2 to the 4th, I know. That happens to be 16. 16 equals x plus 2 times 5. And that, my friends, is a simple algebra equation. There you go. And that's something that you should be able to do in your sleep.
So it should be
16 equals 5x plus 10. Seriously, I don't want to go any further than that. You can handle it from there. If the answer came out negative, you'd have to double check and make sure it doesn't screw this up. Because if the answer comes out negative and it doesn't actually work, then you'd have to throw it out. But you check that and see if that happens. And by the way, it does not come out negative. All right. Let's move on. Number 2, it's essentially the same as number 1. Number 3 is also very similar. Number 4 is a little different. Mr. Yu, would you read number 4 to me, please? Like that?
Yeah.
I think? Okay. So you just added an extra parentheses, that's all. So if I change this ln to a log base e, I hope you haven't forgot that, then what's your go-to strategy number 1? Rewrite. And I can rewrite this. E to the second equals x plus 1. Got to jump around from side to side. And now, remember, when you're done solving is when x is alone. You have to get x alone and simplify it as much as possible. X is not quite alone. Got to subtract 1. E squared minus 1 equals x. And now, that's e to the second. That's not 2 to the e. Because e to the second equals x plus 1. I'm going to give you a really simple one just to see if you remember how to do this. This would be m to the q equals p. You go like this to the this equals that. That ring a bell? Okay. All right, so now, can I be done at this point? Is x alone? Can you simplify this anymore unless you have a neato way to do e squared? Now, the only thing I've said in the past is if you can factor it, you should. I would have totally been okay with you factoring this, but it's not going to really help anything. It's going to be e plus 1 and e minus 1. And that doesn't really help. Because we've already got x alone. We don't need to, like, this is not the kind where it's set equal to 0 and, you know, you got to try to find 2 answers. This is not like that. X is already alone. I'm done. Either one of these would have been fine. All right. In a not kind way, somebody pointed out this is kind of long. Yes, it is. It is kind of long. But by now you should be really good at them. But I am going to have you skip a few of them. All right. So you know I have had in the past given you many days where I've had you skip some, so we're going to continue that tradition here. I think the whole front side is fine. On the back side, I would say that that right-hand column, 14, 16, 18, 22, 4, 6, 28, are going to be optional. The back side evens. The back side evens you can skip. They're optional. Don't have to do them. Now, all depends on how much practice you want for the test, because obviously they're good problems, but you probably don't need quite that many. All right, notice that the whole worksheet says no calculator. So The review worksheet that I'm handing you also is assumed to be no calculator, and therefore your test will probably not have application problems, which is nice because those are the kind that are harder, but because they have hard numbers, and then we have to use the calculator. Well, this does not have those kind of word problems on them, but you don't get a calculator. So here's the review worksheet. If you wish, you may start on this early. This is what I would normally hand out tomorrow, but for those of you that have lots of time tonight and no time tomorrow, maybe it'd be good to start early. The test is coming, ready or not, on Thursday. And that's all I have for the video for today.